Hey guys, Mason11 here, and tonight I'm coming out with my playoff predictions for the upcoming playoffs, and I'm doing this literally right after the Colts-Titans game ended because I wanted to get this done really, really quickly because I know last year I was so late, and to this day I'm sorry that that was the case, but nevertheless I am here, I'm ready, and I have my predictions all prepared, and I'm excited to share them with you guys. So going to the AFC, we have the Kansas City Chiefs, who beat the Oakland Raiders today, wrapped up the #1 seed with a nice record of 12-4. Second seed, we have the New England Patriots at 11-5. Third seed, Houston Texans 11-5. Fourth seed, Baltimore Ravens 10-6. Must say I am very impressed by that defense on Lamar Jackson, which proved me wrong from my previous predictions prior to the season starting. Moving on, we have the fifth seed Los Angeles Chargers at 12-4, and the sixth seed Indianapolis Colts at 10-6. Very nice rebound year from a plethora of disappointing campaigns over the past couple of seasons for the Colts. Moving on to the NFC, we have the New Orleans Saints finishing at the top seed of 13-3. This was the team I predicted to win the Super Bowl prior to the season starting. The second seed, we have the Los Angeles Rams at 13-3 as well. That was a team I predicted to win the Super Bowl in my midseason edition of my NFL standings predictions. For the third seed, I got the Chicago Bears at 12-4. I did predict them to be a wildcard team, but winning the division, that's very impressive, going from worst to first, just like the Texans in the AFC. Fourth seed, we got the Dallas Cowboys at 10-6. If you're not familiar with my channel, I am a Dallas Cowboys fan, so for bias purposes, it's going to be going toward the NFC East, of course. I'm not trying to call myself impartial, but I'm going to try to be as least biased as possible. But Dallas Cowboys are my team. Did not predict them to make it to the playoffs, actually, but defense has definitely been playing outstanding, and I'm going to get more to it later, but. So we have that. Moving on, fifth seed Seattle Seahawks at 10-6, and sixth seed we have the Philadelphia Eagles at 9-7, just barely edging out the Minnesota Vikings. All right, so moving on to our bracket, the first matchup I believe is going to be the Colts on the road to the Texans. So, in my opinion, this is actually a lot even match than what you may expect from the seeding. Last time we saw this, the Colts were actually victorious on the road. That was a very impressive victory. Although it was close, it was still. You can't argue that that was not a good win. Anyway, so a big thing I like about the Colts is how the coaching, especially with Frank Reich, has captained that offense to become without a doubt top 10. They rejuvenated Andrew Luck after all his injuries he's gone through. That offensive line looks really, really good for the first time in so long. Defense has also been pretty solid. So they match up very well against their counterparts in the AFC South. As for the Texans, also a very good offense. Deshaun Watson does not seem to be affected at all from his torn ACL. He's been on fire. Defense has seen returns from J.J. Watt, of course. So it's good to see that these teams have seen their players overcome all the injuries that they've had to witness, and now they're back to being the good teams that they've always been able to be. Anyway, so moving on to what I'm expecting to see. This is definitely going to be a close one. I expect it to be pretty heavy on the offensive shootout side. Would not surprise me if both teams crack 30 points here. Right now, the team I'm giving this game the edge to is actually the Colts. I really think Andrew Luck has more potential to light up the Houston secondary than Deshaun Watson doing that against Indianapolis. I'm not saying Indianapolis secondary is good, but I think Andrew Luck, especially with his experience from playoff games years past, I think he is the quarterback I kind of trust a lot more, and as good as guys like DeAndre Hopkins and Lamar Miller, for example, I'm just not sure if they're going to be just, I don't know what the word is, just kind of productive enough to help a Houston offense outscore an Indianapolis offense. So for this game, I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts, and they will be moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs. So the next game is the Seattle Seahawks going on the road to the Dallas Cowboys. Again, as I said, I'm a Cowboys fan. I'll try not to be biased here, but if I am biased, I'm sorry. Anyway, so this is of course a rematch from about a decade ago. I still am unhappy about that. But anyway, that aside, I have to say over the past 2 weeks, it's been some question marks for Seattle. They had trouble. They had pretty significant trouble today, in my opinion, against the Arizona Cardinals. I know a lot of it came from just a couple of special teams gaps, but I still expected a blowout, especially that it was at CenturyLink Field, and even then the week before that they lost on the road to San Fran, and now they're on the road against a team with an incredibly better defense than the 49ers. As for the Cowboys, though, of course they also almost lost to the New York Giants, and while pretty good against Tampa Bay the week before, I didn't think it'd be as close as it was, and of course the week before that was an embarrassing shutout. So I think there's question marks on both sides of the game here. But other than that, I think this is another pretty even matchup. This is hard to call. Um, I know I'm a Cowboys fan, but there's this. It's just the Cowboys defense is. It's just the reason why they're here. I know they did benefit from the underachieving Eagles and the Redskins, but when it comes to playoffs, defense is going to be the mastermind of helping you succeed, and that's what the Cowboys have been riding all season long. And even on that, the offense looked very good today. So as of now, I am leaning toward my Cowboys. I would not be shocked at all if the Seattle Seahawks win again in the playoffs, especially, and even then, consider the fact they also won earlier this season. Granted, that was with Earl Thomas, and that was before the Cowboys fixed all their problems that they had been dealing with in the beginning of the season when they started off 3-5. So putting that aside, I am giving this win to the Dallas Cowboys, but it would not shock me at all if the Seattle Seahawks win. So this is one I'm definitely not as confident with as a bunch of other games I'm predicting, but I am going with the Dallas Cowboys to come out on top. All right, then we move on to the Chargers visiting the Ravens. And to put it into a little background perspective, we did see the Ravens beat the Chargers on the road. Defense, just like the Cowboys, has been absolutely spectacular. Although the Chargers, in my opinion, are one of the best teams in the AFC South. AFC itself. Sorry, not the AFC South. Just the offense has been absolutely outstanding. It's definitely going to be a really big match for an outstanding defense. So, putting that into consideration, I do expect a close game without a doubt. As for the Ravens, I think they're just the team itself. Although John Harbaugh does have a ton of experience when it comes to playoffs, the team itself is just really, really raw, in my opinion. Lamar Jackson has definitely looked really, really good since he came in to relieve Joe Flacco. Gus Edwards has also looked very nice, and receivers have been also productive as of late. But I just don't like the experience, and I just feel like that's gonna make the Raiders the Ravens. Jeez. I think it might just lead to some blunders just from like costly plays. I just think they're more prone to making mistakes than the Chargers. So with that said, I will be going with the Chargers winning on the road against the Ravens. Would not shock me at all if the Ravens won too. They are still a very good team, and as I said, with the Cowboys, defense is what's going to win you championships, and that's what the Ravens are all built around as well. But putting this into like a juxtaposition, I think the Chargers are a better team than the Seahawks, and I don't think that the Ravens are going to be able to stop them this time around. I think the Chargers will be more motivated to win. I think they definitely have the potential to like learn from mistakes from their previous loss. So moving on, I am picking the Chargers. So that's going to bring us to the Philadelphia Eagles going on the road to the Chicago Bears. This is definitely the one that I'm most confident with in predicting. The Bears look absolutely fantastic, and as good as the Eagles have been, especially from the fact that they were able to rally to get back in the playoffs shows that they're a team that definitely deserves to be there. They're a lot better than the Vikings in my opinion, and I'm even as a Cowboys fan, I'm glad to see them here because this would have been a much better matchup. But in the end, I think the Chicago Bears defense is going to be way too strong for even Nick Foles, who obviously was sensational last year. But I just don't see him replicating his magic that we saw. He didn't really face. Well, the Vikings actually had a good D, but when he was absolutely fantastic, he was going against relatively bad defenses, and unlike the Vikings, the Bears have a stellar front D, and if they can put too much pressure on Nick Foles, who already is a little shaken up after today's game, I think that's going to be the key to victory for the Bears. So I will be going with the Chicago Bears. Moving on to face the Los Angeles Rams. All right, so that brings us to, I believe, the Colts moving on and facing the Kansas City Chiefs. Ugh. I know the Chiefs haven't won a home playoff game in so many years, 20 something. I think the last, correct me if I'm wrong, 1993. I don't remember off the top of my head, but something around there. It's been a long time, but from there on out, the Chiefs have never had a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. If there's one quarterback that's going to be here to end the suffering that the Chiefs fans have seen in the playoffs, it's going to be an MVP candidate in Mahomes. So I just in the end, I think even as bad as the Chiefs defense has been, and I do think that will help the Colts offense to score definitely a lot of points. I expect this one to be a big offensive battle as well, but I just think the Chiefs offense or rather the Indianapolis Colts defense just matches up horribly against the Kansas City offense, and I just can't see them suppressing Patrick Mahomes and company to fewer points than what the Colts would have scored. So as great as the Colts season has been, and as hopeful that we could see for future years to come, I think the season is going to end here, and I will be going with the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, that brings us to the Bears at the Rams, and in the previous matchup, the Bears, I believe, were victorious. In my opinion, I think the Rams are kind of shaky, despite what you may see on paper. Todd Gurley, I think, might be a little bit rusty, given that it will have been 3 weeks since he had last played, and especially going against a ferocious defense like Chicago, it's definitely not going to be an easy task to wake up. Meanwhile, Jared Goff is someone I definitely have been concerned with as late. Albeit he looked spectacular today against the 49ers, but I just think he just struggles way too much against strong defenses. And because of that, I just think he's going to be making too many mistakes, especially kind of what we saw last year against the Falcons. So I'm heavily leaning toward the Chicago Bears making a road win here. I think the Chicago Bears are one of the better teams to have a shot at the Super Bowl this season. They definitely have, in my opinion, they have the best defense out of everyone in the playoffs. So that being said, I think the Chicago Bears will take this one. All right, then we move on to the Chargers visiting the Patriots. This might sound kind of strange or even absurd to some extent, but I feel more comfortable with the Chargers beating the Patriots than with the Ravens. And the real reason why is because the Patriots have looked a lot more shaky as of recent. And especially with the defense that's nowhere near the level of the Ravens, I think Phil Rivers has a very good chance to exploit that. Tom Brady, of course, is still a phenomenal football player, but I don't want to say that this is like the year like age gets to him. But if you remember years back when Peyton Manning lost to the Colts at home, and that kind of sort of started his decline, although it did did later lead to the Super Bowl, even though that was more of a defense. It still led to his decline as being from a generational player to like your typical starter. I'm not saying Tom Brady's going to follow that path, but I think this might be the first step. Not that being said, I still expect the Patriots to have a very good game here. After all, this game is in Foxborough, and they're always going to be productive there. Chargers, on the other hand, are still a very good road team, so I don't know. I don't think home field advantage is going to be the biggest factor here. However, if there's a team that I feel a lot more comfortable with, it's definitely the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm going to be picking them to upset the New England Patriots. So it's really, really hard to pick against the New England Patriots, especially that they've been your undisputed juggernaut in the AFC for the past 5 or so seasons. I just feel like this is the time where the throne is just gonna be usurped by the oppositions. All right, so moving on, we have the Cowboys visiting the Saints. Of course, the Cowboys beat the Saints in the regular season, but I really don't expect that to be replicated again, especially in a game at the Superdome. Drew Brees, without a doubt, one of the greatest to ever play the game, and I think before he makes his retirement, he's definitely going to be on a Super Bowl run, and I think this is the year for him to do it. The Saints, especially as a whole, will be a lot more motivated to beat a team that was not supposed to beat them. I know if there's a team they want to get revenge on, it's without a doubt the Dallas Cowboys. I expect, even as great as the Cowboys defense has been, I expect it to have trouble, and I do also think the Cowboys offense will have some problems as well. So that being said, I will be taking the New Orleans Saints to move on to the NFC Championship. All right, so into our final 4 teams, we have the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Bears, and the Saints. I believe the first matchup is going to be the AFC, just like last year. Again, there's not really much different stuff here. I do think Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense is the offense to beat, without a doubt, for the AFC. And I just don't think the Chargers. I think the Chargers, again, like I said, with teams like with our teams, I think they might be especially if they get all the way to this round. I think at this point they're going to get just a little over vulnerable to mistakes. I just think the Chiefs are going to be the better team here. Again, the Chiefs' defense is not good at all, so I expect the Chargers to still put up a lot of points. But in the end, I see Patrick, like what we saw in Week 1. Actually, I see Patrick Mahomes captaining his Chiefs offense and moving on to the Super Bowl. So that said, I will be picking the Kansas City Chiefs to represent the AFC. Moving on to the NFC Championship, it's a rematch from 2006, I believe. So, and I believe the Bears won that one. So the Saints will definitely be looking to win this, get revenge here. This is gonna be a grueling matchup. These two teams in the Chiefs, in my opinion, are the 3 best teams in the playoffs. So whoever wins this is gonna put up a great matchup against the Chiefs, assuming that this is the result that we see. Much like I said about teams like the Ravens, as great as the Bears have been, I think the team is still too raw. Guys like Mitchell Trubisky, I think, need to develop more before I can be confident that the Bears can be a Super Bowl caliber team. Defense, on the other end, is without a doubt Super Bowl caliber. I just think the offense needs more pieces. Like I do like the Trico and Jordan Howard duo, but I do think the receivers have also been a big step in the positive direction. But I just don't think it's gonna be enough. I do think Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, and company are going to be able to find ways to be able to defy a hardy defense like the Bears. So I just don't think the Bears are going to be able to respond offensively just to match up. the key for the Bears to beat the Saints and go to the Super Bowl is going to be defense creative points, whether that's a pick six or just turnovers that or turnovers like in the opponent 20-yard line, which would lead to like red zones. It's going to be these are the things that the Bears are going to need in order to make the Super Bowl, in my opinion. Of course, it can very well happen, although I just don't know if I'm confident enough to predict that specifically will be actually occurring. So putting that to rest, I do think the Saints are going to move on to the Super Bowl. So that leaves us with the Chiefs versus the Saints for Super Bowl 53. And much like we saw in the Chiefs-Rams game, this is going to be an offensive game for the I don't even know what to describe it. If you thought the Patriots and the Eagles last year was an offensive match for the ages, it would not shock me if the Chiefs and the Saints had even higher yardage and points and other numbers put up in that one. This is a team. These are two teams that are all offense. But I'm giving the edge to the Saints here. The defense for New Orleans is without a doubt much more balanced than the Kansas City defense. And I'm not going to say this is a reason I like, but I do think my prediction is that Patrick Mahomes is going to win the MVP. And as we've seen, there's the quote unquote MVP curse in the Super Bowl. Like for example, Tom Brady last year, Matt Ryan the year before that, Cam Newton the year before that, as well as Peyton Manning in that Super Bowl against the Seahawks. So with that in retrospect, I absolutely do not want to predict at all that Patrick Mahomes is going to follow their footsteps and choke it. In that sense, I do think he's still going to have a stellar game. As I said, I expect this to be an offensive shootout. Honestly, I think both. If you want me to be honest here, both teams are going to score 40 points if this is the actual outcome we see in the Super Bowl. But for a team that I am much more comfortable with, it's definitely the New Orleans Saints. So, that being said, I predict that your Super Bowl champions are the New Orleans Saints for the first time or the second time in this history, first time since 2009. So, I think that wraps it all up. So, I think I'm going to conclude from here. Enjoy the rest of your breaks for those that still have it. And yeah, that's all. Have a good day.